You've all heard the story of the two little boys, they're doing the study, the pessimist and the optimist, right? And they put one little boy, the pessimist, in a room with every toy imaginable, and of course all he did was complain that there wasn't anything, he couldn't make up his mind what to play with. And there were too many things, he was pessimistic. And they put the optimist in another room with a pile of horse manure. They went to check on him, and he's digging through the manure as fast as he can with a big smile on his face, and he's like, hey, with all this poop in here, there's got to be a pony somewhere.
Oh my God.
That's the appreciative look. There's something good to be found, and I like that. So this is sort of the same sort of thing. One person looks at, wow, look at all the dirt we've got to play with, and another says, oh, look at the hole we have. Well, what's your view? What is the view that you're going to take in dealing with this? So here's the typical problem-solving approach. First of all, we identify a problem. Then we try and figure out what's the cause. What's the cause? And then we brainstorm solutions. What are we going to do? We analyze the problem. We brainstorm solutions. We analyze the solutions. We try to pick the one that has the, figure out what the consequences are. Which one are going to have the most favorable consequences. We develop that plan of action. We implement it. If we're doing it well, we monitor and we adjust and we go through that whole process. And that's how you dealt with most problems, haven't you? And that's how we deal with most problems. What I would suggest you do is think about what's working. Anybody in here ever been part of a team? Anybody ever been part of a successful team? Anyone ever been part of a successful team that you enjoyed being part of? Why? What made that experience so good for you? What did you like about it? Okay, you had common goals, and that's typical of a team. And there was some equality. You're never a team. You never have all the same stats, do you? I mean, but
well, it seemed like.
Yeah, but nobody flaunted their. Everybody had a job to do, and they did their job, and they knew that they were interdependent. In other words, they depended on you, and you depended on them, and you knew that your contribution was necessary for their success, and your success was dependent upon them. So we had this sort of mutual transaction, this give and take that was going to occur, and we're all kind of focused on the same thing, and that's typical of a lot of us. But have you ever been in a situation where, man, it was just magical? I mean, for a few moments, whatever that was. Sometimes I have classes like that. I'll just get in, and it'll just flow. And I mean, people will be engaged, and we'll all be, there'll be all this interaction. It's a great class. And I'll walk out there and go, wow, what was that? What did I do? More often than that, we walk away and we just feel good about the fact that it was so. But how many times do we stop and say, why did that work so well? What were the conditions that made that happen? Because isn't that where you'd like to be all the time? Wouldn't you like your life, whatever that is, to be more of those wouldn't you like those magical moments to be the norm as opposed to the exception? Or even have more of those exceptions?
There was one of my classes where the opposite was happening. There was very much discussion, and my teacher actually asked us, a couple of us after class, why other people might not have been talking. And it's interesting because we never really talk about, how come this went so well,
Yeah, we tend to look, and that was what you're talking about, is you're trying to problem solve. Why is nobody participating?
Yeah.
Okay. The other question is, why are they participating? What is it that encourages them to participate? Why do I feel like I can't? I understand why some of you are hesitant. You don't know me from Sikkim. And you're here because you have to be. I understand that, but some of you are participating, and that's great. Why? Take time to figure out why. And then what can we do to make that happen more? So we start to imagine what it would be like. And then what are we going to have to do to make that happen? And then we set about making it happen. So they actually call this the 4D, and then it became the 5D cycle. So they first start out with discovery. What is it that really makes us click? And we're having those magical moments. What are those conditions that are there? And then how can we make that happen more? And then, okay, so now let's start to put that together. And then, of course, once we put it together, let's test it out. So they kind of went through this 4D model. But what they discovered is that because as human beings, we construct our environments, that so much of who and what we are in our organization is dependent on the language and what we say to one another, that they really came up with the idea, what we need to do is, before we start this whole process, we got to figure out the right questions to ask. Because as I asked you, what were the conditions that made your particular team experience successful? Very easily, someone could have said to me, well, I was on a team one time and it sucked. We had this guy who just thought he knew everything and wanted to do everything his way, and it could easily turn negative, couldn't it? And we can all quickly identify with those experiences. I told you I was a classroom teacher when I started out. And after about 2 or 3 years, I discovered the one place I never wanted to go was the teacher's lounge. Because what are they doing there? Excuse me, they piss and moan. All that they do, they complain. It's like, oh, these kids are rotten, or oh, the principal, I hate the principal, or oh, who came up with this? Oh, well, we have to give a test on Friday. Oh, the kids are just rotten kids. I mean, it was such a negative environment I just couldn't take. So I just made a decision. I'm not going in there anymore. Unless I have to. I'll go in and get a Coke and go back to my room or wherever I can be. Find someplace else. So appreciative inquiry is really focused on the positive. Think about what is it that makes us the best we can be at those moments. What are those few times when we're doing really well? And as you get into organizations, wherever you're working, and it's going to be hard because you're working with victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, maybe other kinds of crimes. That's hard stuff. But what is there to appreciate about it? What about the work of your colleagues? What made us work together so well? Why did we solve this particular one so quickly? How did we get this person the help they needed as fast as possible? What conditions were in play? Can we do more than that? Imagine it from that perspective, and I think you'll see some remarkable changes. Typically, when we go through the problem-solving thing, we end up with more problems. We solve one problem and create 3 more. I'm kind of convinced that this is a much better approach. So, as leaders, you have to have the dreams. You're the catalyst of the dream. You're the ones that start the dream. Have dreams. Dream big. Work small, but dream big. I talked about, let's change our world. Let's not just help that one victim of domestic violence. Let's help the perpetrators of that violence. Let's help our society. Let's get away from being bullying and commanding and controlling it. Let's get one where we're supportive and collaborating, cooperative. That's a better world, isn't it? That's what I want. I hope it's what you want. Can't imagine you're going to this field because you just want to work with people that are dealing with some really traumatic issues. I mean, there's got to be something good that's going to come out of this. Let's change the world. When I talk about vision, I talk about these perspectives. Hindsight, peripheral vision, insight, and foresight. Okay? So hindsight is sort of that perspective of where we came from and how did we get here. Sort of looking at historically. Peripheral vision is, what's coming at us from what direction? Who driving those buses? Who are the stakeholders? Who are the other players? I need to have a sense of who else is involved here. Insight, I talked about insight a while ago. What are your values? What are the core things that drive you, that make you the person that you're going to be? And of course, then you can put those pieces together and create foresight and start to develop a vision of the future that you want to see.